Alright, so we're back with the 89 5-liter Mustang. We did get the upper intake off in the last video, so you can check that out. We got some vacuum lines to address, and we need to pull the fuel rails and change the fuel injectors. So the way you want to get started with that is with safety glasses and a rag. You want to take this cap off of this Schrader valve right here and relieve the fuel system pressure. Now, I highly doubt I have any pressure because my injector O-rings were leaking so bad. That's why we're doing this repair. So I doubt we're going to get anything more than a trickle, but I should probably have a rag here, some gloves, but watch your eyes, camera person. Yeah, see that? We got a trickle, literally a trickle of fuel came out. So there's no pressure in the system, so we're good. Another thing I do want to do before I start back up after the repair is change my fuel filter, and go to all this trouble. You know, I might as well start with a brand new fuel filter. I'll probably pick up a Wix or something. You can actually get Wix filters at my website, number1synthetic.com. Aside from the Amsoil synthetics, you can also get Wix filters for a lot of the applications. The Amsoil doesn't make a filter. Okay, so these clips on these fuel injectors, again, are 31 years old, so try to do this with care. Try to get these off without breaking things. I broke the clip on the EGR connector. So far it hasn't been, there we go, so that one's off. And so we'll just do that, get all these off of here, and then unbolt these rails and get this stuff out of here. So it's like the more I do, the more I realize maybe I should do. So down in here, right, that black thing right there with the wire coming out, I believe that is the coolant temperature sensor for the gauge. But I believe this, on the other side of the motor, on this heater pipe on my 89, is the coolant temp sensor for the computer, something like that. I think there's two different ones, and then this, I believe this is like the air intake air charge sensor. I mean, I don't have a check engine light on, but I'm just wondering if maybe I should change some of these sensors while I'm here that aren't too expensive. So we'll see about that. My coolant temperature gauge hasn't worked in years, so I'm guessing that's probably what it is. And then it does have a condition where in the past several years, I mean, this thing was running real good when it was warmed up, but before the engine was warmed up, it would stumble and buck, and you could just barely give it throttle and get it down the road till it warmed up for a few minutes, and then it ran perfect. And I have heard that that is quite possibly this coolant sensor here, because the computer doesn't know the temperature and everything. So we'll see. I've gotten all of these off. I only broke one so far. I broke that one, the tab. Thankfully there's a tab on both sides, but I have not yet gotten that one yet. I think I have to take the fuel rail loose, and you've got the pressure regulator and everything, and there's a injector under there. So I haven't got to that one yet, but slowly but surely. Alright guys, so I got distracted. I actually pulled my PCV valve grommet out with a little pick. I was able to get that out. I mean, it might not be in terrible shape. We'll see. The new one's supposed to come possibly tonight from Amazon. I got that, a Motorcraft PCV valve, and a one of these screens. made by Wix, which I just yanked out. Wow, look at that. That is pretty crazy. So, see, this job is becoming, you know, more and more than just, you know, the injectors and the thing, so the regulator. So anyway, but it's a good idea to do it, and I guess it just comes down to, you know, obviously if your goal is to perfectly restore your car, you definitely want to do all this kind of stuff, but in my case I have to be selective because I can't afford to do the whole car, but there's certain things that it's like, yeah, you just need to do some of these things. So I'm not sure. Take a look down in that PCV valve hole. I've never had the upper intake off, so I don't know exactly what we're looking at, what that goes to, but I'd like to try to clean that out, but you know, if I spray some solvent down in there, I really don't want all that junk dribbling down into my oil pan or wherever it's going to go. So I don't know if I could suck it out of there. Maybe I'll just do some paper towel soaked in solvent or something, try to get stuff out of there. We'll see. Alright, I ran a paper towel down in there that was covered in brake cleaner. It got some of it out, but it's still pretty gnarly and nasty down in there. Okay, so I just pulled these bolts. There's one there, one there. I used an 8mm, and now we're gonna see what happens when we lift up on this fuel rail. I don't know how flexible that thing is in the back, if I need to have the other side loose as well, because yeah, I definitely don't want to bend anything. Let's just see what happens here if we...
Well, I did find this one.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I'm gonna try taking both sides off. Feels like it would work better. So I'm using a U-joint or swivel socket down here on this bolt under the fuel pressure regulator on the fuel rail. I got some tape on there from before. I was using it for another job and I needed to keep it straight to get it on a bolt, but then it also allows it to flex with the tape on there anyway. But so that's what I'm doing, and then we'll have all 4 bolts. I think it's just 4 bolts for the fuel rails, and we'll see how this is all gonna work. And back down in there at the PCV area, got it a little cleaner. Alright, I pulled the plug wire and see that there was a bolt right there, and that allowed me to lift my fuel lines up just a little bit so that I can, you know, get a little more play in the fuel rails up here. So I mean, they're kind of loose. It's just, I think I'm gonna have to just carefully pop them up and, you know, pop the new injector down in there. I don't know if these are gonna totally lift off of here, and like this one here is still gonna be probably the toughest to get to. It looks like it's down under there, and yeah, with the fuel pressure regulator right above it and everything. So I don't know how much I can show you, but that's what I'm going to be trying to do without knocking a bunch of junk down in the holes. I mean, obviously this motor's very dirty. I didn't plan to really, you know, clean it up a ton. It is what it is. You know, hopefully down the road we can do a ground up resto mod. but for now, this should be good. We'll get it going. Alright, when you're doing something like this, it's easy to get, sidetracked. I mean, there's so many things that as I'm getting into this, I see that I should take care of. I went ahead and popped off this coolant line, and there's one, it's hard to see, but it's, actually that's it right there. It's wet because coolant bubbled out when I pulled the line off. It was kind of hard to get it off of there, so I'm probably just going to replace that. I don't think I'm going to worry about sourcing the exact part. Those lines right there, which were they're actually in better condition than I would have guessed. Motorcraft, I'm sure they're original, but there's not any signs that these would fail. I don't know, I would feel silly to put the car back together and then, well, that is kind of soft actually right there. So yeah, I think this is where it was bolted on down to the intake manifold. I just feel like it would be super hard to get to with all of this stuff back together, so I'm gonna go ahead and replace that. Let's see. So I have managed to work these fuel rails up and off of the injectors. Well, some of them are pulling the actual injectors out of the hole, like that one, and some are coming off the fuel rail. But it looks like in most cases the O-rings are remaining stuck up inside the fuel rail, so I'll have to carefully, retrieve those. Not to reuse them, but just to make sure they're out of there for the new injectors. And then of course change this fuel pressure regulator. And I did go ahead and order, I've got a fuel filter I'm gonna pick up at O'Reilly. I got a Wix fuel filter. I've got this, I think that's the Intake Air Temp sensor, that coolant temp gauge sensor down there with the one wire on it, and the other coolant sensor, which is right here, plugged into that pipe right there. So I'm gonna change those out. They're right there. Those three sensors plus the fuel filters, another almost 70 bucks, but it's worth it just to, you could probably reach those with the upper intake on, but I'm just going to go ahead and do them, and the fuel filter, and hopefully we'll get this thing going. Oh, another thing is, from my research, I've been looking, and they are saying that this gasket is actually reusable. Hopefully that's not foolish, but it came off in one piece. It's perfect. I don't see a reason to, scrape this off and everything. I mean, I don't know. I had thought about doing a phenolic spacer, but we'll see. Alright, so I got the bolts out of the fuel pressure regulator. This one here, extremely, that's going to give you the most trouble. Get your Allen wrench down there, and I was able to lift the fuel rail up high enough to get the Allen wrench, after I loosened the nut, I was able to get the Allen wrench under it this way, which made, loosening it a lot faster. So yeah, we're about to pull that off, and I don't know how you would change that fuel pressure regulator with the upper intake on the car. I know people do it, and that's awesome. You're my hero. I've never tried to do it with the intake on, so I think it just pulls out of here. It's basically some O-rings, I guess. Alright, there it is. Let's have a look. So that's what you got. So yeah, we'll get our new one slapped in there. I have a feeling this was bad, but I don't know. And I know there's ways to test them and all that, but I mean, while you're in here, just go ahead and do it, you know. Like I said, what got me home when my car stalled in the first place was tapping on this thing. Unless it's just coincidence, but you know, I prayed, I tapped on the pressure regulator, and it started and ran, got me home in the garage, and it died in the garage, so didn't have to pay for a tow. So our new one is this standard products, I think it's called T series, yeah, by Standard. I got this from Summit along with the Excel fuel injectors. Like I said, I looked at the Excel fuel pressure regulator, and I looked at a bunch of different sites, and the reviews just weren't convincing me that the Excel was worth the, you know, triple price. This one here was like 20 bucks, so you know, hopefully it's going to be good. If you need adjustable and stuff, obviously go for that, but I think for me, with a stock motor and 19 pound-hour injectors, we should be fine. Alright, so we've got our new one, and now we'll see how tricky it is to get these bolts back in. This particular one does not come with new hardware. I think the Ford Motorsport one does. So if you, or Ford Motorcraft, I should say. So if you want to pay the premium for that one, I thought about it. I thought about even checking with my local Walker Ford here in Clearwater, but for the price and the reviews, this one was fine. So we're just getting these. That toughest one would be back there, so just take your time and try not to drop them. Make sure you have a magnetic pickup tool handy, and work them in here. Yeah, like I said, I don't know how you would do this with the upper intake in place, but I guess it can be done. Alright, that's good. Alright, finally getting somewhere. I got the new fuel pressure regulator bolted down with the original bolts. Got them all tight. Went slow, you know, tried to do it evenly, and just hand tight with the Allen wrench. So I guess the next thing is start, you know, pulling injectors one by one, making sure all the O-rings come out with them, and installing the new ones. And I also got some sensors like I was talking about. I picked up locally, I grabbed a Wix fuel filter. I'm going to change that before this is all said and done. And I got some other sensors here. Now you can get these sensors online. Again, I don't know if all of these needed to be replaced, but I thought it was a good idea since I'm right there. I picked these up at O'Reilly. This one is the Intake Air Temp sensor in the manifold. So, I mean, like I said, the car ran great, but it's right there. And so this one here is, which one is this? This is the, I think, one of the coolant temp sensors, the big one in the heater pipe. I'm guessing this is the one that the computer reads. And then there's this temperature sending unit for the gauge. So my temperature gauge has not worked for years, and figured go ahead and change that out, and hopefully get that. I've heard that can even make your car run better if it wasn't getting a proper signal. So, you know, all these sensors, you know, they weren't that expensive, so I figured go ahead and do them while I'm there. like I said, I had that issue where at before the engine was operating temperature, it would buck and kick if you open the throttle too much. So somebody had said that one of these coolant temp sensors was most likely what was going on there. Guys, so here's the grommet that I ordered on Amazon. I don't know why it won't come in. There it is, GV28 by standard, and it looks pretty much just like what I pulled out of there. So we'll see how that fits. If not, I'll try to reuse the old one, but I think this one will be fine. This was like $2 and something on Amazon, and Wix 46978. This was hard to find on Amazon. I kept searching and searching, so if you're looking for this, maybe it can help you out. But it's this thing, the breather that's down in there below the PCV valve, and I don't know why this was so hard to find. It wasn't coming up in the suggestions when I would search for PCV valves and breathers. I don't know what I eventually did to find it. 46978. You might even get this locally, I don't know. So finally, this also from Amazon. This wasn't super expensive, but EV98B. Looks like it's the right one. You know, it's a universal. It comes with this extra attachment, but I probably won't need it. Just the PCV valve itself. So cool. Let's get that stuff in. So here's something you don't see every day, if you can read that. Made in USA, and that's the Wix part here, this screen. So anyway, there's that grommet. The PCV valve is a pretty tight fit actually in that grommet, so as long as it's a pretty tight fit going into the intake, I think we'll be in good shape to use it. And there it is, stuck in there. Motorcraft EV98 9B20. So we'll go ahead and stick this thing down in here. Hard to see what you're doing. Kind of just have to feel it. Just drop it down in there, I guess. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I mean, it's like it's kind of stuck there on top. I don't know. I'll have to tap it down in there or something. A little bigger than the older one or something. I'll play with it. So it turns out I had to really force that screen down in there. I used a socket with a little extension, just tapped on it with a handle of a screwdriver, but it wasn't just sliding in real easy. Other issue is the new thing I thought fit a little bit loose into the intake manifold, so I tried to reuse the old one, and it's just as bad. I mean, they're both about the same. So the PCV valve actually fits tighter into the new grommet. I was going to reuse the old grommet, but the PCV valve was really loose. So I've got it in the new grommet, and I was going to hit it with some of this, just a little bit. This is a maximum oil resistant gasket maker. I was just going to hit it with a little bit around here. Nothing too crazy, but that's what I'm doing. Yeah, like I said, just a little bit around the where it's going to seat. I mean, you know, it's not going to be, doesn't have to be perfectly airtight, I don't think, but, you know. Still can't see. There it is. Yeah, it just sits in there. Maybe I'll rotate it just a little bit. I got a vacuum cap stuck on the top of it just to keep debris from getting out till I'm ready to hook it up. So there's where it sits back there. There it is. That's where it sits back behind the manifold. So yeah, day or whatever that gasket maker ought to set up, and I'll pull that cap off and connect it when we get the upper intake back on. Old sensor versus new sensor. Alright, so we got two brand new sensors here. We got the one down there with the single wire on it. That's for the temp gauge. And this sensor here, the intake air temperature sensor. And it came out, I believe it was a 1-inch socket I used, and that one was 11/16 I used. And I want to show you this intake air sensor. Oh my word, look at this. I mean, the oil, you know, I'm hoping this new PCV valve and everything is going to solve this, because, I mean, that's just coated. But yeah, I mean, 31 years worth of buildup. Alright, so there's that new coolant temp sensor in there. Just take your time, don't, you know, force anything or break anything off. But and remember, these threaded sensors don't always thread in all the way. So, you know, my thing is I do them till they're tight, till they just feel firm, and I figure I can come back and tighten them more later if I have to. Well, that is if you can get to them with everything installed. But another thing is, and here's the old coolant temp sensor that I just did, but see all that sealant they put on the threads, which is a nice feature, but they put it down too far. The sealant should not go down to the first 1 or 2 threads. There's a reason for that. The brand new sensor out of the box, I could not get the threads started, so I had to take my little pick and clean out the first thread or 2 just to get this thing, just to get the new one to be able to thread in. But anyway, other than that, everything looks good. There's those 3 sensors. You know, I spent a few bucks there for those sensors, but I think it was wise, even though this engine's old and it's got a bunch of deposits in it, and it is what it is. I know, you know, a lot of you are going to be saying, why don't you just rip this thing out and start over, start with a new motor? Well, I'd love to, but, you know, I don't have the finances to do that right now, so I'm just trying to do what I can within reason to get this thing back to running. And like I say, one day, Lord willing, do a ground up resto mod. That would be ideal. Okay, so we're trying to take these injectors out, which I have never done before. Kind of wiggle it. Goodness. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these have never been messed with in 31 years, so. Okay, so, oh, yep, I think the O-ring is still stuck up in there, so we're going to have to look at that. But there it is, a stock 19 pound-hour fuel injector from a Mustang 5-liter. So, anyway, we'll go ahead and let's see if we can. I've got this pick. Now I want to be gentle because I don't know what all is up inside here that could be damaged, but we got to get that O-ring out. Oh, there it is. So there is our O-ring. I mean, it doesn't look to be in horrible shape, but I'm sure it doesn't take much for there to be a fuel leak. And I think it was mostly, you can see the rail is discolored there, so I'm thinking this one was leaking. But anyway, so that's what we're gonna do. I want to look up inside the fuel rail.
The video we just made.
No, this one. Just want to see. Everything looks good up in there. Alright, so I dumped out just a little bit of clean engine oil. That's what they want you to lube the O-rings for the new injectors with. And it just happens to be the Amsoil 1540 diesel and marine, because it's what I got open right now. It's actually what I'm running in the Mustang right now, because it's what I had on hand at the time. I go through all that in the first video where we pulled the upper intake manifold, and probably going to be switching down to a 30 weight, getting back closer to what is recommended, and that should free up a little horsepower too, not having as thick oil in there. But anyway, yeah, this is, by the way, a high zinc oil, but we talked about all that in the previous video, and you don't really need high zinc as this is a roller cam. So, but for you guys that do have solid lifters and flat tappets, look at my first video. We talked about quite a few Amsoil options in various viscosities that have high zinc. Alright, quick plug. My website, number1synthetic.com, where you can get all the Amsoil products shipped to you. Free shipping over $100, and it's actually free shipping over $50. So pretty small order, you can get it shipped to you for free during this current situation through June of 2020. So click the link down below in the first comment. I'll pin that first comment with my website, number1synthetic.com. Alright, we talked about this in the first video, but here's my Excel 150819. These are 19 pound-hour, brand new, direct replacement for these engines. And you can get, obviously, different ones, but everything's stock on mine as far as my calibrations and everything. So, pull one out. They're packaged real nice. I went with these new ones. I talked about that in the first video. I know my engine's old, it's got a lot of miles. I thought about just going used, or even just changing the O-rings on the old injectors and reusing them, but these are supposed to be a huge upgrade over stock. All the reviews were people raved that their cars, just stock, you know, older Fords ran so much better just changing these out. So decided to go with these. Alright, so I've just applied some of that oil just with my clean finger, the O-ring, and I'm actually putting it, you know, just a light coat, just all the way up here. Never done this before, so we'll go ahead and slide it in. I'm going to leave this blue plastic cap on until I'm ready to set the fuel rails down. I'll do four at a time, and then I'll pull the caps and seat the fuel rails at that all at once. I don't really know how far these are supposed to go down in there. that's good for now. We'll see if they're supposed to seat further down. I guess not. I guess they just kind of sit like that. Alright. Okay, we're looking under this injector here first on the driver's side, or under the fuel rail I should say. I gotta say, these O-rings, maybe looks can be deceiving, but they look to be in pretty good shape. I mean, I can't tell that the injectors were for sure leaking around these O-rings. I mean, I hope the fuel rail itself is in good shape. So I wanted to show you up close. These injectors are slightly, the new ones might even be just slightly taller, but the main thing is the difference on the bottom. These have this 3-hole design. They're supposed to be a really good newer design, but I'm just a little concerned about you know, that length, and they're not going to stick down as far. So anyway, but nowhere on the reviews online did anyone mention anything about any issues with that. So I'm just concerned. I don't know if they feel like they're holding in there as tight as I feel like they should be, but you know, like I said, nobody mentioned that in the reviews. They just said they made their old Ford V8 run like new, whether it was a pickup truck or a Mustang like this or whatever. Very, very highly reviewed on different websites. So I guess that's why there's bolts, you know, holding the fuel rails down, so that's what keeps them in. Guys, I hope I'm doing this right. I got the 8 injectors in place. I can still rotate them so that I can plug them in if I need to, and obviously I got to pull the caps off and stick them on the fuel rails, but I just wanted to get them in place. You know, oiled them, just stuck them in. They don't seem like they seat real positively, like the old ones were real tough to get out. These just seem like they kind of just sit in there. Again, the design's a little different. I hope everything's going to work out and work well. So, thanks a lot. Alright guys, there was not a lot easy about this. I think I have all 8 injectors in the holes and the fuel rails popped down onto them. That was actually more difficult than I thought, getting these things to seat properly. I think they are. You can see the bolt holes are lining up where I'm going to bolt the rails down, so that's a good sign. But yeah, it was not easy. Obviously I had to put some force down on the rails. It might even be more advisable to pop the injectors into the rails first and then try to lower them down into the manifold. I don't know. There's nothing really easy about it. I think they're in. Game plan is hold these things down while I tighten the bolts, and of course put that nut back down there that holds the fuel line in place, and probably get under the car, change the fuel filter, and then Lord willing, I'd like to turn the key and, you know, power up the fuel pump and just see what happens. You know, probably take a couple cycles to fill the lines, but I'm praying that it's going to pressurize the system and not have any leaks. Before I bolt this manifold back on, I'd like to know that the fuel system, at least that part, is good. Alright, bolts are in. You know, I held these rails down, kind of wiggled them, and held them down with, you know, downward pressure as I began to tighten the bolts, and I tightened them just a little and got them all where I feel like the rails are down and where they need to be, and went ahead and tightened them. I think there's a torque spec, but I just, I'll probably hit them one more time before I put the manifold on. But so now we're going to go under the car, jack it up, safely support it, and change the fuel filter out, and hopefully with God's grace and favor we can turn the key and pressurize this system, and I will consider that a success, even though the car's not done or running. But at least that's the issue that we set out to correct. Alright, I got my floor jack and some jack stands we're going to raise and support this thing. Don't forget to check out my website, number1synthetic.com. It's in the link in the first comment down below. Go ahead and click that and check it out. And now's a good time to say, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment. But let's see, I'm just going to go under the rear axle. Right. So there's the rear axle. See my Flowmasters there. Very old, but they do hold up well. I bet you they're 15, 20 years old probably. Had a smaller block of wood. I just like to use something that's deformable to protect things and not cause things to bend. So here we are under the 89. We got it supported on our jack stands. You can see I do have subframe connectors. That's something I had Idlewild Racing weld in back in the day, especially with a convertible. Oh, and the aluminum drive shaft. But and the Flowmasters, that they make the car sound really good. You can see there's oil everywhere. I mean, this thing's probably slinging oil out of the pinion bearing here. Anyway, so let's look at our fuel filter and take a look at everything. So it's just some connectors and clips here. The fuel system pressure. This is why I'm doing this again, is because there should be no pressure in here, and you just undo that clamp, pop those clips out with a screwdriver, and I think, if I remember, I think they just pull off. It's been a real long time since I have done this, probably something like 10 years. Anyway. Alright, I just thought of something. So anyway, I pulled the clips with a screwdriver. They just pop out. And I've got this one loose. I had my little bowl, little catch bowl here to catch what came out. But I have these little caps. You could use vacuum caps like I ordered, but these are just plastic. These come on things like inline filters where they cap the ends to keep them clean, and I save this kind of stuff. Just for this, I can pop these over the ends of the filter, and that way, just temporarily, and that way the gas won't spill everywhere while I'm wiggling it out of that thing. Alright, I'll show you in a minute. The one I just pulled out said 243,000 miles, and I couldn't actually read the year because it was smudged out. But and this is a Wix, made in the USA, and the other filter, I think it was a Fram, and it says China on it. So yeah, hopefully this is a better filter. And we will look at Amsoil My Garage the feature you can use to store all your vehicle maintenance at, whether you're using Amsoil products or not. And we'll look and see if I recorded that, so we can know the year that it had been done. I don't know if I had done this before I got into Amsoil, so we'll see. We'll look later. Be sure to install your fuel filter in the correct flow direction. They make it pretty easy to tell because of the, if you look at this collar, you can see that it's flared out on this end, and that corresponds to the, see how this end is like flared out. So, but yeah, just take note of that. So here's the filter that I pulled out. You can see I wrote 243,000 miles, and you can see the date except for the year. Oh my goodness, is that 07? That might be 07. That's crazy if so. But you can see it's only been about 17,000 miles in that time. And yeah, made in China. That looks like a Fram. I'm guessing that's a Fram part number. But anyway, so, but we got a new Wix on there now, so this is the one. So if you're doing your Mustang and you want to do a Wix 33097, it comes with the clips. I'll get under there and show you. Amsoil actually carries Wix now for whatever they don't have an Amsoil filter for. So again, just go to numberonesynthetic.com, click the link in the first comment below. You can type in your year, make, model, and engine and see exactly what Amsoil products or Wix filters are available. Free shipping on orders over $100, and right now, because of the situation, the virus and all that, there's free shipping on orders over $50. So it's a real nice option. Alright, so I've got the new filter in, new clips. It's not hard. You can do this job yourself, just in case you're wondering, you know, changing a fuel filter. Just get yourself some gloves, some safety glasses, and those caps that I used actually did not work. They were too big, so use some rubber, you know, vacuum line caps that would fit tighter would be my recommendation. But there it is. Alright, car's still up in the air because I want to slide under there and check for leaks at the fuel filter when we turn the key. Obviously the main concern is the injectors and pressure regulator, all that the leak is fixed up here, because that's the reason we had to do all this. So I'll just pray, Lord, we thank you for your grace. We pray that it would glorify you to have this job be a success and have this fuel pressure build with no leaks. Thank you. And even if you don't, Lord, we know, like Job said, shall not we accept adversity from the Lord as well as good things? So, but we do pray for your favor. In Jesus' name, amen. Alright, praying for no leaks. I'm going to reconnect my battery. I do have a slow voltage leak on this car, so I installed this switch. You can see my battery tray is pretty much gone. That's why it's zip tied in here. But again, I'm just doing enough to keep it going until I can, Lord willing, afford to do everything one day. Alright, so I'm going to cycle this key, and I can't even hear because the air conditioner right next to me. So let me kill it again. Let me restart it. I should probably turn off this air conditioner. Oh no, I hear a leak. What in the world is leaking? Alright guys, well, something is not good. I should not be hearing a fuel leak right now. Where in the world is it leaking? Huh. Well, this is a mystery. I can hear it. I can hear fuel spraying, but I don't see it. All I can imagine is it shooting down into the engine. Huh. Maybe I shouldn't have plugged the injectors in. Maybe there's a problem. Maybe something is telling the injectors to shoot fuel in. Oh my goodness. I don't know what's going on here, but I hate to say we did all this work for nothing, but anyway. So guys, in Job 2 verse 10 it says, "Shall we indeed accept good from God and not accept adversity?" And so we got a little adversity going on here. I'm going to try to ascertain exactly what's going on. I'm going to pull this tape off and turn the key on and see if I can figure out if the fuel is spraying in through all 8 injectors or just one of them, or what, because we've probably got a shorted wire, or the PCM is bad. There could be some other things, but all my online research is looking like that. So guys, if you know about the fuel system on these cars, and pretty much any, I think, modern fuel injected car, you know, you turn your key on, the pump is supposed to cycle, it's supposed to come on, and then once it builds pressure, usually a couple seconds, it cuts out. And what's been going on since I started having this problem is, you know, you turn the key on and it's just constant. The pump's running constantly, and you go out under the hood and you can hear fuel spraying somewhere. And I thought it was leaking out of my injector O-rings, and that's obviously not what's going on. So we're going to turn the key, we're going to see what happens, and try to look down in the intake runners and see if we can tell if it's coming out certain injectors or all 8 or what's going on. So I don't know if you'll be able to hear my fuel pump cycle, but I'll just tell you what's going on. So yep, fuel pump's just spraying, or just running constantly, and I can hear it. I don't know if you can hear that on the video. Yeah, you can definitely hear, but I guess I'll try to do this off camera because it's hard to hold this and try to diagnose, but I'm going to get a good flashlight and shine down in there. Well, unbelievably, guys, I went through all 8 of those runners. I even stuck a really long zip tie down each one of those, and got it all the way down to, you know, where the intake valve would be, or whatever. So, you know, if the fuel was spraying out of the injectors, you know, you'd think I would smell it, or you'd think it would, you know, get on those zip ties when I would stick them down in there, that they would come out wet with gasoline, but none of them did. So I don't know if the fuel is just making that whistling sound as it goes through the rail and returns to the pump, or returns to the tank. And I don't understand a brand new fuel pressure regulator. So we'll have to keep trying to see what's going on. Alright, I went under my driver's seat after looking online. Took out this bracket. I don't know if your car is going to have it, but my 89, that bracket, that is the plug and the fuel pump relay. Looks to be original. It's got Ford on it. So took me forever to get this thing out of here. I didn't want to break the connector, and it just felt like I had to put more force than I was comfortable. Finally jimmied it out of there. It looks to be some kind of strange, like it actually says, I probably made it more complicated. I don't know if you can see it, but it says push, P-U-S-H. You can see that, but so I tried that, and I ended up lifting the tabs up over the thing, but I guess it's made to where if you push down and pull, but it was hard to get it without, you know, this short little thing of wiring. Anyway, so the interesting thing is I had the key on, the fuel pump was running, doing the normal problem, and while I was messing with it, because I tried tapping on it, I thought maybe that would, you know, solve the issue. I tried tapping on it, didn't change it, but while I was unplugging this thing, I had the key off. Keys in the car, but the key was back off, fuel pump was off. As I was messing with this, trying to unplug it, the fuel pump came on unexpectedly. Now that is strange. I mean, that's with the ignition key off and the fuel pump came on. I had to actually disconnect the battery to get the fuel pump to shut off. So I gotta think this thing is probably screwy and acting weird. I think they're about 19-20 bucks at the parts store. Mine is only a 4-pin. The one I saw on other videos and the one at the parts store I saw online has 5 pins, so it's probably just a unused connector. And in my plug, it looks like an unused, if you see that one there, there's no metal prongs inside of it, so it probably won't matter if I get the one with 5 prongs. It's just unused on this car. So anyway, I'm probably going to go that route and see what happens. But I think another step is to check my fuel pressure and see, you know, I mean, in theory, I should have, you know, about 39 or 40 PSI up here, or maybe a little more with the regulator unplugged. But yeah, we'll see. So anyway, I'll post a couple screenshots. I did go ahead and order a fuel pump relay on Amazon. It was about half the price, and good reviews, half the price of the local parts store. I also went ahead and ordered a adapter and a small fuel pressure gauge. I'm going to mount on my fuel rail in place of the Schrader valve, and because I know I could borrow a gauge from the parts store for free, but I just want to put one on there. It's not an expensive gauge, but it got good reviews, so hopefully it'll work out and give us an idea of what's going on with everything. Really like to get to the bottom of this, so hopefully this fuel pump relay is going to get us moving in the right direction, hopefully. As always, guys, if you have any need for synthetic oil filters, fuel additives, be sure to check out my website, number1synthetic.com. I do sell Amsoil, or the link in the first comment below, and that'll take you to my website. Oh, normally free shipping over $100, but through the end of June 2020, it's actually free shipping
over $50 due to the virus situation and all that. So if that helps you out, be sure to take advantage. I think the code is free ship or free ship 50 or something like that, but it's on the site. You know, when you go to numberonesynthetic.com, you'll be able to click the click through to the online store, and yeah, definitely take advantage of that. You can type in your year, make, model, and engine, get a list of what Amsoil products are recommended, or you can shop, just browse through and pick your own stuff. Preferred customer program, you pay a small fee to buy everything at wholesale, so that can really save yourself some money depending on how much you're going to be buying. Thanks, guys.